My name is Joseph Miller. I'm 27 years old, and I live in a small, quiet town in upstate New York. Last year, something happened on Christmas Eve that I'll never forget. It's the reason I no longer enjoy the holiday season, and every time someone mentions Christmas lights or caroling, I feel a chill run down my spine. I was home alone that night. My parents were visiting my sister in Boston, and since I had to work on Christmas morning, I decided to stay behind. It didn't bother me. I was used to being by myself. I rented a couple of movies, ordered pizza, and planned to enjoy a peaceful evening. The snow was falling heavily outside, covering everything in a thick white blanket. My house sat at the end of a quiet street, and most of the neighbors were away visiting family, so it was eerily silent. Around 9 p.m., I heard the sound of carolers. I thought it was odd since I didn't think anyone else was home on the street, but I figured maybe a group had come from another neighborhood. Their singing was faint at first, but as I listened closer, I realized something was off. The voices didn't sound harmonious. They were disjointed, like they weren't really singing together. It was as if each person was singing a different song entirely. Curious, but also slightly unsettled, I went to the window. I could see faint shadows in the snow, illuminated by the streetlights, but the figures were too far away to make out any details. They were just standing there, not moving, not knocking on doors, just standing. I felt my stomach tighten. I tried to shake off the unease and went back to my movie. About 10 minutes later, I heard a knock at the door. It wasn't the usual friendly knock. It was slow, deliberate, and too heavy, like someone wanted to make sure I knew they were there. I froze, debating whether I should answer. My front porch light was on, but the peephole had been broken for years. Stupidly, I hadn't gotten around to fixing it. I grabbed my phone and crept toward the door, my heart pounding. "Who is it?" I called out. There was no response. Another knock came, just as slow and heavy as the first. I stood there, trying to listen for any sounds outside, but the snow muffled everything. Against my better judgment, I decided to open the door, but only a crack. When I did, my breath caught in my throat. There was a man standing there, wearing a Santa Claus suit, but it was filthy. The white fur was stained brown, and his beard looked like it hadn't been washed in months. His face was pale, almost gray, and his eyes didn't seem to blink. "Merry Christmas," he said, his voice low and raspy. I didn't respond. I couldn't. I was too scared. He just stood there, staring at me with this unnerving smile. "Can I come in?" he asked after a long pause. "No," I said quickly, slamming the door shut. My hands were shaking as I locked the door and backed away. I grabbed my phone and called the police, telling them there was a strange man outside my house. They said they'd send someone over, but with the snowstorm, it might take a while. I tried to calm myself down, but then I heard something that made my blood run cold. It was the sound of jingling bells, like the kind you'd hear on a sleigh. But this wasn't cheerful. It was slow and deliberate, coming from the side of the house. I ran to the back door to make sure it was locked, and that's when I saw him. He was standing in my backyard, staring at me through the glass. His smile had vanished, replaced with a blank expression that was somehow even more terrifying. He held a bag in his hand, and for a moment, I thought I saw it move. He raised his hand and waved at me, and then, without breaking eye contact, he started to walk toward the back door. I grabbed a kitchen knife and yelled, "Go away. I've called the police." He stopped, tilting his head as if he were trying to process what I'd said. Then he slowly turned and walked into the woods behind my house. The police arrived about 30 minutes later, but by then, he was long gone. They found footprints in the snow leading to and from my house, but nothing else. I spent the rest of the night locked in my bedroom, clutching the knife and jumping at every sound. The next morning, I found something on my porch, a small box wrapped in red paper. Inside was a Polaroid photo of me, taken from outside my window. To this day, I have no idea who he was or what he wanted. But every Christmas Eve, I make sure I'm never alone.